Hi friends and subscribers, hope you're all doing well. So I'm going to be doing another album ranking video today. I'm going to rank the studio albums by Aerosmith. So Aerosmith are one of my favourite bands of all time. They're a band that I've always been aware of, but it wasn't until last year where I actually started to really dive a lot deeper into their catalogue. So yeah, they released 15 studio albums. I don't have every single one of them. I've got 10 of them here, so I'm missing 5 of them. So yeah, before I start, because I say this at the beginning of every ranking video I do, that it's just based on my opinion. It's neither right nor wrong. It's just how I prefer these albums. This is not the definitive ranking of Aerosmith's albums. This is how I prefer them. If you prefer them in a different order, it's totally fine. I shouldn't have to keep saying this at the beginning of every album ranking video, but apparently I do. 'Cause the last album ranking video I did, which was Pink Floyd, some people didn't like it. Some people were, well, I think just one person was annoyed that I put, because I didn't like the final cut that much. But, it's my opinion. You're not going to, convince me to change my mind. I rank them how I want them, so here it is. So starting at the bottom, number 15, this is one of the ones I don't own. I don't really have any reason to own this one. I've got no use for it. It's Just Push Play from 2001. I just never liked this album. I mean, for starters, the cover art is pretty shit, to be honest, and yeah, and I am one of these people that will say don't judge an album by its cover, but please, at all costs, judge this one. Yeah, I just can't stand the production sound on this album. It just sounds like crap, if I'm being honest. And the songs on this album, I just don't like most of them. There's a couple of songs on here that are okay, but yeah, they're not. But they don't really make this album worth owning for me. So yeah, I just don't care. I just don't like this album at all. It's probably the only album by Aerosmith that I straight up dislike. The few at the bottom of the list, I don't dislike. They're just all right. But this one, I just don't like it. There's moments on this album where it's just very. It just sounds very cringy. It sounds like a lot of what the modern, pop rock bands. Those modern pop rock bands that were new at the time. And yeah, this is just not what I want from Aerosmith. So yeah, that's number 15. Number 14, I'm going to go with 9 Lives, which came out in 1997, I believe. Yeah, it's a big selling album. It's an album that certainly has grown on me in the last few months. But yeah, it's ranked this low because I'm not a huge fan of the later Aerosmith albums. For me, my favourite era of Aerosmith is their 70s albums and some of their 80s ones as well. But yeah, the later ones, from the 90s and onwards, I like them a fair bit. But they're not the ones that I reach for when I'm in the mood to hear Aerosmith. So this is one of those albums. Yeah, it's an album that I do like it, but it's just not one that I reach for. But I'll put it on from time to time. But yeah, I do really like the title track. Pink is a great song. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that cover though. I mean, this is an alternative cover. I prefer the other one, the one that's more well known. But yeah, good album. Just not one that I listen to a lot. And next up, number 13, I'm going to go with Music from Another Dimension, which came out 2012. So this is their most recent album. Again, another album that I didn't really care for on first listen, but it has grown on me a bit. Don't know whether this will be their final album. I know I think Aerosmith have stopped touring now, but whether they'll do another studio album or not, I don't know. If not, then this is their final studio album. I hope it's not. I hope we get another album from them. But yeah, it's a good album. I just like Nine Lives. I do like this album, but it's just not one that I play a lot. And then next up, I'm going to go with Get a Grip from 1993. Again, this is another album that I didn't like it on first listen, but now I do like this quite a bit now. So it's got, it's Eat the Rich is a great song, the title track, Fever, Living on the Edge, Shut Up and Dance, Crazy, Can't Stop Messing, Boogeyman, it's just a fun 90s rock album. Yeah, I don't play it a lot, but yeah, I do enjoy this album. Next up, again, I'm looking at the Notes app on my phone because I don't own all these albums. I have to look on the Notes app where I've ranked these. So yeah, next up is Honky on Bobo from 2004. So yeah, I decided to include this. Some people don't include this, but yeah, because it's their covers album. It's all blues covers on here, but I really like this. They do a good cover of Roadrunner, Eyesight to the Blind, Baby Please Don't Go, Back Train, You Gotta Move. I like this a lot. There's some really good covered songs on here. It's similar to that album that the Rolling Stones did, Blue and Lonesome, which is a blues covers album. And a lot of people do refer to Aerosmith as America's version of the Rolling Stones, which I suppose in some way I can see that. I mean, when I look at Steven Tyler, he does kind of look a bit like Mick Jagger, I do feel. But it didn't actually strike me until yesterday. I was watching a documentary on YouTube about Aerosmith's albums, and somebody said that Steven Tyler does look a bit like Mick Jagger, and I was like, yeah, you know what, he does a bit, not a lot, but a little bit. But yeah, anyway, it's probably not a fair comparison. They are two completely different bands, and they're both great in their own right. But yeah, that's Honky on Bobo. Next up, we're into the top 10 now. Next up is Permanent Vacation. This was kind of like a comeback album for Aerosmith. This was released after their collaboration with Run DMC. They Walk This Way. Yeah, this was a big selling album. I probably don't like this as much as most people do, but it is a good album. I do appreciate it. I actually like some of the deep cuts better than the hits. I love their version of I'm Down, which is a Beatles cover. The title track's really good. Angel's really good. Ragdoll. I'm not the biggest fan of Dude Looks Like a Lady. Just don't care for that track. But then again, it has been played a lot. But yeah, it's a good album. That's my number 10. Number 9, I'm going to go with Pump, which came out in 1989. Yeah, I do like this a tad better than Permanent Vacation. Yeah, this is another album that had to grow on me. But yeah, I like this a lot. It's got Young Lost, Flying, Love in an Elevator, Janie's Got a Gun. Yeah, very good album. And then And then the next one, Half. Trying to get the notes app. So yeah, next up, yeah, I made a bit of a mistake there. I thought I owned 10 of them, but I think I've only got 9 of them. Yeah. So yeah, next up is Rockin' a Hard Place from 1982. This was the only Aerosmith album without Joe Perry on guitar. But it's not a bad album. I think this is an underrated album. You know, there's some really good stuff on here, like Jailbait, you know, Bitches Brew, title track. You know, I think it's a very strong album. You know, despite Joe Perry's absence. So yeah, that's my number 8. Number 7 is Done with Mirrors, released in 1985. You know, I think this is their best album of the 80s. You know, it's a very heavy album. You know, when I listen to it, it's hard to believe that this came out in the 80s. You know, it sounds more like, you know, what they did in the 70s. So yeah, it's quite an underrated album as well. You know, I think this one does get overlooked. But yeah, I think it's a very strong album. And then at number 6, you know, we're getting into like probably the cream of the crop now. Yeah, everything from here on is the 70s Aerosmith. So number 6 is Night in the Ruts, 1979. Another album that I think is often overlooked. But you know, Steven Tyler and Joe Perry were not getting along at this point. But no, I really like the album. You know, I think it deserves more attention. So yeah, that's my number 6. Number 5 is their second album, Get Your Wings, from 1974. Another fantastic album. Another one I think is underrated, because I know the first 2 albums didn't sell too well, apparently. But yeah, I like this. It has Same Old Song and Dance, Lord of the Thighs, Pandora's Box. I mean, it's just a great album. And number 4 is Draw the Line from 1977, their Cocaine album. Yeah, another album that I think is also underrated. I think it deserves more. I think it deserves more appreciation. You know, it's just got such a raw production sound, and especially I just love the version of Milk Cow Blues that they do on there. I probably like it even better than the Kinks version. And now we're into the top 3. Number 3 is the self-titled debut album from 1973. Yeah, I love this debut album. It, of course, has Dream On, which was a hit for them, and Mamakin. But the rest of it is great as well. Make It, One Way Street, Moving Out, and they do a really good version of Walking the Dog, which the Rolling Stones also did a cover of that on their first album. So yeah, you can understand why I'm saying that there are some things that Aerosmith did that resembled the Stones. You know, the Stones did a blues covers album, Aerosmith did a blues covers album, and both bands did a version of Walking the Dog on their respective debut albums. But yeah, I love this. And Steven Tyler sounds different on this. It doesn't even sound like Steven Tyler. You know, his voice is not like high pitched like it would become on later albums. But he's obviously a lot younger on this album. And then the top 2. Number 2, I'm going to go with Toys in the Attic from 1975. So this was the album that made them popular, because the first 2 albums didn't sell too well, but this sold really, really well. So of course it has Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion. Sweet Emotion is probably one of my favourite Aerosmith songs. You've also got the title track, Adam's Apple, Uncle Salty, Big 10-inch Records, which is a cover song. I know a lot of people don't like that track. I don't mind it. I think it's a bit of fun. No More, No More, just classic album. And number one, it's got to be Rocks from 1976. Yeah, I think this is Aerosmith's heaviest album. And yeah, if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said Toys in the Attic was my favourite, but this one has overtaken it. Of course, we have Back in the Saddle, amazing, Last Child, Rats in the Cellar, Combination, Sick as a Dog, Nobody's Fault. I mean, the whole album, like, there's not a bad song on here. This is all killer, no filler right here. So there you go. So that's my ranking of the Aerosmith albums. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and feel free to give your ranking if you want to, but just be constructive. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.